Hello and welcome to the episode 27 of the Digital Quill Podcast. I'm your host, Mars Wilson, and today I have with me another guest. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves, because this is going to be a wild episode.
Well, hello, Mars. I am Jonathan Realz, and I am the co-writer and I guess co-star of the movie The Marks, which is available now on Tubi. And I cannot be more excited about being on this episode, specifically because 27 is my favorite number.
Oh, wow.
I got like super excited that like I am on episode 27. This was meant to be. It couldn't have been a better episode. So thank you for having me.
Of course. I am excited to have you. A little bit of background about me, about why I do this, just so you know, because I know you're not like my personal internet bestie or anything like that. I do this because I like having conversations with other people, and I like having other people have conversations. I'm a big on like telling our personal stories, because every one of us has like this unique, like individualized experience, even if we have similarities. And it's also wild to kind of like come together and see that. So thank you for being here with me today, because not a lot of people are comfortable with conversations. I think there's a growing trend in that, but if you know what I mean, I think if you know, you know.
No, I do. I absolutely agree completely that there is a growing trend in, I guess, I lack of conversation, maybe antisocial behavior, but I mean, yeah, I love having conversations, even if it's with just a random stranger on the street. I know that I'm like supposed to be here to promote a movie or whatever, but you know, like I since we're on the topic of conversation, one of my favorite stories that I have in my life is about last year I was Vermin Supreme's running mate. Whenever and I'm not sure if you know who Vermin Supreme is. He's a well-known weirdo on the internet who runs for president and has for the past like 40 years, and wears a boot on his head promising free ponies. And he's a very strange, eccentric individual, and he asked me to be his vice presidential candidate. And we went around to basically every town in the state of Delaware and tried to meet and talk to every person.
Cool.
And it was such a unique experience. We would tell them hi, and you know, you're walking up to them. He was wearing a cape, dressed like a wizard. Hi, I'm running for president of the United States. And then having the weirdest possible conversation with them possible. And it would brighten their day, and you would talk to them about things. As soon as you get done talking about all the weird time travel and zombies and whatever weirdness you want to have, you know, then you ask them about their life, and they'll tell you about, oh, what are they doing on their day? You know, oh man, last week this happened to me. Oh man, I just got out of prison, and I'd been in there for 15 years, and I'm trying to get my life together, and today I just had a job interview. Like, people tell you all kinds of stuff about them if you just ask.
That's true.
And it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. Just every single day. We had shows at night. We would go, you know, to different nightclubs and do different, you know, weird stuff, and perform with different local music and different things. But during the day, it just was meet as many people as possible. And that was it. I will always hold that as like a warm, positive place in my heart. Like it was really cool.
Kind of like a core memory.
Too. Yeah, very much a core memory.
I totally resonate with that. My mother growing up was always right there with me whenever we were at grocery stores, because I had a tendency, and I still have that tendency even today, to just strike up a conversation with a stranger. Sometimes it starts with a compliment. Other times it starts with a random question that other people probably have never asked them. And my mom used to describe it as the way of, by the time we left a store, I would get within like 15 minutes an entire life story of somebody. And I still love doing that, because we're such strange creatures. Human beings are such strange and weird and awesome little creatures. Like, what are we? Who are we?
Yeah, this resonates completely. I mean, whenever I was a kid, I would do the exact same thing, except I feel like I was asking to be kidnapped. I mean, I would be like, "Hi, I'm Jonathan. I'm 4 years old. This is my brother. He is 2. My address is..." Please, don't listen to him.
Whoa.
Yeah,
redacted.
redacted. It's a wonder I survived.
Honestly, same. Let's see. I'm gonna jump right into it because I am like super duper curious. The only way I know you is because of the marks. I found you on Twitter X. I'm gonna call it Twitter X because it used to be Twitter, now it's X. I don't know what's going on anymore. Twitter X.
I like it, Twitter X. I think it should be Twitter X. That's what they should have. Yeah, I like it.
Honestly, same. Like, why just X? I feel like I'm talking about an X. Like,
we had Disney Plus, right?
Right.
You know, HBO Max.
But they got rid of the HBO.
Max, and then but now it's back. HBO's back. They added the HBO back. Yeah, like a week and a half ago they added it back.
Wow. Good job. That is a great decision. I need to pat the backs of whoever did that.
Yeah. The marketing team over there is really on it.
I guess
brand
so.
awareness, perfect.
What made you want to write a movie? What made you write that movie?
Okay, all right. The tough questions.
It is a tough question.
No,
I'm sorry about it.
I've always wanted to write a movie. I've written many movies in my day. I would say the first one that I wrote, well, I know for a fact which the first. Well, I kind of wrote it. I would say improvised with my family members and friends whenever I was in middle school, and I spent my entire 6th grade summer making an entire feature film on VHS. Whenever that, and then whenever I got back to school, I had copies with artwork designed up so that way I could try and hawk them to the other kids and be like, "Hey, you want to watch my movie I made during the summer?" So I've always done that. But this specific movie came about. I had done a web series with one of my friends. The director, Joseph Lavender, was before I knew him at all, he was casting a web series that was like a Ghostbusters tribute series. And I auditioned for some weird like pothead character or something like that, and it went really well, and we kind of stayed in contact over the years, and he knew that I was like a big fan of professional wrestling, and he knew that I had written stuff in the past, and that I had a comedic background. And he had a script for a movie called Suplex that he could never get off the ground. He had written and directed a couple horror movies that are out, and he wanted to revisit the movie Suplex because he always had a love of pro wrestling. He wanted to be a pro wrestler before he was an actor, and kind of was like, well, maybe I'll revisit this script. So he gave me the script and asked me to read it and see if there was, if I thought there was any thing to it, if I wanted to be a part of it, and maybe do a rewrite. And he had this idea of the problem with making a wrestling movie the way that he wanted to do it was, he wanted the guy who started out small, and then all of a sudden by the end of the movie he's a big star. He's got to meet his favorite wrestler, and that kind of like hero's journey, standard movie. And the problem when you're trying to do that with pro wrestling is like not filming the small stuff. It's easy to film the small time stuff. The problem is that when you want somebody to become a pro wrestling superstar, you need to be able to film those scenes, and there was no budget for that, for like a small independent film. So he had the idea of, well, what if we went smaller? What if it was you had someone that, well, they're already wrestling in their backyard, but you know, they just want to make it. They just want to wrestle to a real audience at all. And if you go smaller, maybe we can accomplish that. So I was like, oh, you might be onto something. And what that really resonated with me, because whenever I was a kid, I went through a phase where I wanted to be a wrestler, and me and my friends, we would beat each other up in the backyard with our, you know, little wrestling ring and stuff like that. And so I was like, there's something to this. So we wrote a movie called The Mark, and it was about a guy named Mark who gets sucked into this world of backyard wrestling. And that character is actually still in the movie. He shows up to the video store and he rents a VHS tape from me. He was supposed to be the main character. And that actor, Robbie Odenby, is more of a theatrical actor. And he got offered a theatrical role about 2 weeks into filming this movie, and it was a movie or a role that he could not turn down. So he asked if there was any way we could do, like, halt the production or anything like that, and there was just no way that we could. So the only solution was to do a major rewrite and make all of the supporting characters larger roles, which I actually think was creatively, nothing against Robbie. I love Robbie. It was so much fun to work with. And on the Blu-ray, there's a lot of like deleted scenes of like this Mark character that doesn't matter to the plot anymore.
So there's a Blu-ray.
But yeah, oh yeah, but Blu-ray and DVD.
Cool.
So it making all of these like weird supporting characters larger roles, I absolutely felt like, I mean, it really made the movie what it is, the ensemble cast. And that is what makes pro wrestling so much fun. It's like there really isn't a main character in pro wrestling, and I don't think there really is a main character in the Marks. A lot of people kind of like point to like Maggie, Jack, myself as like main characters, and yeah, we do kind of like drive a lot of the like plot and some of the main event picture, I guess, as you would put it in pro wrestling terms. But like really, so many of these other characters steal the spotlight. Like Bishop Moneybags is my favorite character in the whole movie. Well, I'll take that back. I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite character because I feel like the commentators are so funny too, and you know, Sam, who plays my best friend, you know, Gunnar Willis, who plays my best friend Sam in the movie, is such a talented actor, and he's so funny in his own unique way, and like a completely different way than some of the other over-the-top characters. So yeah, the ensemble nature just came together organically. But yeah, I mean, I think I answered your question.
You did. I think so. Because the question was, why did you make this? And after watching the movie, I will admit I was going to try to watch it one more time before our episode, but I didn't get the chance to. So I'm only able to remember when I did watch it. I think I posted about it on Twitter. Okay. I have to just say this because as someone who minimally knows about wrestling, not enough that I'd like to know, but it's such a big world, it's kind of hard to pick a place to go to. Your movie was so entertaining and so awesome. I could feel the creativity and the passion for it. Like, between your acting as your character and like all the others, like I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like a passion project, like a project of love, and not like I don't know how to explain it. You know how like you go to a Marvel movie and you can tell like it's just about the money and how many views we can get. I mean, of course we want your movie to have a lot of views, like, of course, but like at the end of the day, it's the love that you put into it, especially the love that you guys put into the credits. The credits, when they started to roll, the creative decision, I have never seen credits like that. And I love the credits because sometimes there are like little Easter eggs, and you had a lot of them in your guys' credits. Let's see, what was that one? One of the names said something about probably smokes too much weed, or probably smoked too much weed. Yeah. A sound guy, I think, probably. Was it a sound guy? I think it Was
Yep,
it
there was a sound.
Who decided the credit thing? Because they need to be a comedian or something, because that was golden.
So that was a decision made by the director Joseph Lavender. So I think he had noticed there's a few other directors that had kind of had a few joke credits, and you know, kind of like peppered through their end credits.
Mm-hmm.
And he always really liked that. And so many people wore so many different hats in this that it seemed kind of weird to just see the same name over and over and over and over and over again. So it was like, okay, well, if you can give them like a crazy, you know, more exotic title, you know, then let's give them that. You know, they did way more than just, for instance, Jody, our you know, designer who designed all of our costumes, you know, props. She was hunting down Beanie Babies to make sure that they were in the background of the video store. I don't even think there's a close-up. There's an entire Beanie Baby section in the video store that's like you can just kind of notice if you're paying attention. And that was a detail that Jody made sure was, you know, was there because it was the 90s and everybody was selling Beanie Babies. I'm
gonna have to rewatch that and look for that.
And she did so much stuff, but also she also made sure that there were snacks and stuff like that for everybody. She was the crafty person. Like she wore so many different hats. So, you know, of course we're gonna give her some, you know, she was the set mom. She was everything for everybody, you know?
That's awesome.
And there were quite a few. I do not know all of the credits that are there. The hair person, Haley, I believe is credited as my personal hair person, I think. And that's basically because I might be a little bit of a diva when it comes to my hair. I'm not gonna lie. I was constantly like, can I get last looks? Can somebody come check, make sure my hair looks good? Can I? Being
a diva over your hair's not a bad thing. It's fine.
Haley, I don't want to. She would hate me for giving her credit because she always gave me so much crap, but with a smile. And the joke's always been that we absolutely hate each other, but like, you know, she was so much fun to work with. But it made the crew very, very happy to see her give me so much crap because they were waiting on me to get my hair fixed. So, in fact, there's a scene where Haley did a horrible job with my hair because the humidity was so bad, Haley. And when I'm riding in the truck with William Tokarski from Adult Swim, and my hair is poofy the whole time, Haley, you could have done better.
I'll have to clip that part. Just so we can give it to you and you can send it to her.
But yeah, you know, so that was the way that that decision was made. But yeah, you're right. There was a love from so many people were having so much fun. You know, one of my favorite stories to tell is there's a hidden character throughout the entire movie named Randy, and nobody ever addresses him by name, but it's one of my friends from when I was in my early 20s. He worked with me at like a pizzeria, and we've stayed friends over the years. And when this was going into production, I put up, you know, on social media if anybody was interested in, you know, coming and being an extra or something like that, to let me know and I'd make sure you got on. And there weren't very many people that took me up on it. I think he was No, I think maybe like 2 or 3 people. But he was the first person to actually take me up on it. And he showed up, and he was such like a positive energy. Um, and he's credited in the movie in the opening credits, Ryan Diamonds, and I think it's the only time an extra is credited in the opening credits of a movie. But Ryan Diamonds as Randy, but he is an extra throughout the entire movie. The same extra, the same like a continuous background character, but he was such a positive energy, and he helped out in any way he possibly could, and he was just like brightened everybody's day on the like couple days that he was there. That Joe was like, we've got to put him in the entire movie. We need him there. We need him there for his positive energy, even if he's just there to be in the background. And he was right, because Diamonds is like he was. I think that's probably he's one of the reasons why there's like, you can feel the love. Him and so many other people. Robert, who played one of the commentators, Robert McElroy. I actually met him around the same time. We were in a play at Auburn University together, and we had always kind of like, stayed in contact, but never had an opportunity to work together. And we both ended up working in the Atlanta film scene around the same time. Never had an opportunity to work together. And then this movie was going into production, and he was such a big pro wrestling fan, and we were just kind of like grabbing a bite and catching up. And I was mentioning that this was going into production. He was like, Jonathan, if you can get me an audition, just please get me an audition. And I was like, Robert, I will do more than get you an audition. We're gonna figure out a way to get you into this movie. And like, he tried out to be a wrestler, and we were like, no. You've got like his wrestling knowledge and his ability to improvise and just talk. I'm like, you've got to be on commentary.
Speaking of wrestling, have you ever been in the ring yourself before?
Just for the movie. Well, I take that back. All right, so that's complicated. All right, so I had to go to, learn. I had to learn some, moves to make sure that I could safely take, all of the bumps that you end up having to take when you're filming this kind of stuff. We did have stunt people. I did not have a stunt double. And the only person who did was Maggie, and it was for only one shot. But everybody else, if there was wrestling in the movie, they had to learn how to do it. We did have wrestlers that worked on the movie in stunt coordinating capacity and stuff like that. Joey, who was a WCW wrestler, played Jack Dixon, and he taught me a lot. I did not have to do a whole lot of wrestling for the movie, but Joey knew how much I loved wrestling. So every day that like everybody else was training and he was there and he was warming up, and he would be like, hey, get in here. Let me show you this. Let me teach you this. Let me show you how to do this. And like, I know that was just him knowing how much it like meant to me as like a fan to learn about it. So he just would do it. So like, I have like so much love for Joey for that. But and of course it was helping him get warmed up too, but yeah, I mean, I learned a lot. And then after the movie was done, because I did have to learn, I did have my local wrestling promotion bring me involved, get me involved in some stuff to help with some charity events and stuff like that. So yeah, I didn't really wrestle, but I was in the ring and I got involved. I got squashed by a couple guys in the corner and ended up fracturing my rib. But I've had an umbrella broken across my back due to my prized red umbrella from The Walking Dead, and they broke it over my back.
Poor umbrella. Rest in peace.
R.I.P. Umbrella. But yeah, other than that, nothing to shake an umbrella at.
Nothing to spill milk over.
No, yeah.
How is your back after some of the spills?
Yeah, so boy. All right, man. Once again, I don't want to give away too much, but I do end up taking a wrestling move and one of the bumps that I had to take for the movie. Luckily, we filmed that in a way to where it was being filmed in slow motion to be in slow motion, so we could kind of not put as much impact on that move as it normally would have had.
Okay.
And so yeah, so there's the movie magic there. Now, with that being said, there are a couple of the shots where we did do it a little fast to try and get like what I guess you would call it, the shock waves that you can kind of see whenever something happens in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, like if you see somebody get hit with a steel chair, in slow motion, you can see their skin kind of ripple.
Mm-hmm. That rippling effect.
Yeah, you kind of want that when you're filming action stuff in slow motion, and the only way to really get it is either CGI or
doing the actual thing. The actual active hit.
There are some moments that like you can't fake. There's Dumpster Diver is the stunt coordinator for the movie. The actor who plays Dumpster Diver is Brian Alexander, who was the stunt coordinator. Used to be a pro wrestler. I think he might still pro wrestler, just kind of part-time. But there are some absolute moments that he is not faking anything. There was no way to do the shot, and he's like, except me doing it. Like, there's a trash can in the corner of a wrestling ring, and the only way you fake someone's head caving that trash can in is by someone's head caving that trash can in, and he does.
My next question.
But that was the pro wrestler in him. Yeah.
My next question, because I thought about it when talking about the possible injury sustained, who fared the worst injury-wise by the end of the production? Or I guess how many injuries were the total count at the end of the production? That's probably a better question.
There was only one actual injury, I would say. There was a moment where Maggie twisted her ankle while we were filming the Battle Royal. But that was it was such like a fluke moment, and like I was actually involved in that, so like it was while we were filming like my close-up, and I was holding her other ankle, and
I think I remember that. I kind of remember.
Yeah.
Ouch. Okay.
So she twisted her ankle during it. I felt so bad. I don't think there was anything that anybody could have done differently, but you still feel bad. You know what I mean?
At least you felt bad. I have met people who have injured people and are like, I mean, it happens. Excuse you. Feel bad. Feel bad. Just a little. I don't understand the lack of empathy sometimes.
Brian got hurt more than anybody, though. Like, if we're being like honest about, like, but that was always him being like, okay, what do we need to do? How do I need to be hurt to make this shot look good? Mm-hmm. Like, as the stunt person, what do I need to do to myself? And Brian made a lot of mistakes telling me telling me things that he was proud of that he did as a professional wrestler. For instance, he was bragging about how one match. So there's a common spot in pro wrestling where they will dump out like a bag of thumbtacks, like the little flat ones like this.
Oh, okay.
Little bitty ones, and they'll dump out those little flat ones everywhere out of the ring, and the wrestler will get dumped on it, and the tacks, they get stuck in your back, and it's gnarly. It's something a lot of wrestlers have done. It's made famous by Mick Foley, and Brian made the mistake of telling me that at a local wrestling show he wanted to do a comedic version of it, and he dumped out Legos.
Nice.
Instead of thumbtacks, it was Legos, and
the almighty
the crowd
Lego
gasped because it's Legos, and he takes the Lego bump, falls on the Legos, and I find this story to be intriguing, and he's bragging about it, and I'm like, so Brian, what if I write that spot into the movie? What are you gonna say about that? You want that for your main event? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. Plus, we've already done that. Somebody's already seen that before. We can't do something that's already been done. We'll have to write something in that's different, Brian. So that's where we wrote in the infamous pecan spot. So it's I think it's my favorite real hardcore wrestling spot that's in the movie. And so depending on which region of the country you're from, in the South people call them pecans. I believe in the Midwest they're pecans, and then pecans. Anyway, the nut, whatever, the tree nut.
the thing that you have in a pie around the fall times, I think.
Correct. Yes. So very hard shell, and in the South they get everywhere. Those trees are in pretty much everybody's yard in the deep South.
Interesting.
So yeah, and so. In fact, the yard that was used as a set for the marks had a pecan tree, and every day, that we would film, you would have to make sure that the nuts were not in the ring, because they would just drop into the ring. So
they just wanted to be on camera.
We replaced the Legos with pecans, and so there is we did the real thumbtack spot, the infamous thumbtack spot with pecans, just so Brian could have a little extra clout for his hardcore wrestling. So there you go, Brian. You wanted to brag about your Legos. There you go, buddy.
As someone who will not eat pecan pie, I know I'm a horrible person. I prefer pumpkin. I'm sorry about it. Maybe I'll try another pea pie. Pecan pie.
Pecan. That's we tried to write in. I actually think there was a lot of deleted scenes that never made it in, where people just said that word differently throughout the movie. So one character would say it one way, another character would say it another way, and another character would say it another way, and we just tried to pepper it throughout the entire.
I like that.
But I think it only ended up being said by me. So it never worked out.
Still good for a story, because
yeah.
Now I'm going to be thinking about pecans.
You kind of brought up that this wasn't a Marvel movie, but I will tell you, having worked on a Marvel movie, the one similarity is that we filmed way too much. I think the movie had about 4 hours in length before it was shaved down, because we filmed so much.
It was a 2 hour and something like that.
It was
movie.
a 2 hour movie. Yeah. And there was so much wrestling that got filmed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there was a match, the match got filmed. The whole match was written, for the script. And so there were some times where it's kind of things were done in montage, montage form to kind of cover up for the fact that some story had to be, I guess skimmed past, and and the rest, that's not. You're trying to make a movie that's about the wrestling world for a non-wrestling audience, and that's what we had to keep telling ourselves.
As I said, I can't say that I'm not a wrestling fan. The person you met earlier who asked you a question or two, Nathan, he got me into wrestling back in the day. Probably like 6 or 7 years ago. It's been some time since I've paid attention, but you might have noticed the beanie that he handed me.
Oh, yeah. That's a Bryan Danielson, but at the time Daniel Bryan beanie, I'm assuming.
Probably.
Yeah.
You're gonna know more than me about it. I'm sure he's explained it to me before, but unless like I'm like involved in it and like I'm strange, I have to be like present and like in it. Like I have to be like watching the thing or like visually experiencing the thing. Just being talked at. Like I will pick up the information, not as much. Visual.
It does, yeah, and wrestling is hard to get people into if they're not if it's not already kind of part of their life from an early age. If they're not like, I don't know how to put it. Like if they're not, it's almost a cult. No, it's.
I can see that.
If you're not already exposed to it pretty early in life, it's hard to understand. Or if you're not really, really exposed to it on like even a weekly basis, it's hard to even get back into. I know a lot of people that are lapsed fans, and wrestling used to be such a huge part of their life, but if you even bring up the idea of them watching it currently, they're like, I'm not watching that. And it's like, but why? You used to love it and it used to make you happy. Well, I don't know. That was a long time ago. Don't
grow up.
One of my friends, that's what they said is I grew up. And it's like, okay. That's cool and all.
That's great for you, but way to suck the joy and fun right out of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. One of my favorite things going on, and you follow me on Twitter X. One of my favorite things going on right now is or was, and then there was so much drama that went on, but one of my favorite wrestlers is the wrestler R-Truth, who now goes by his own real name, Ron Killings. And I've said for many years that Ron Killings is one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, not just because of his in-ring skill, but because he's such a great comedic mind. He is, and not just from like an improvisational standpoint, but from like a joke writing and structuring and delivery standpoint. He is a talent that nobody else can touch in professional wrestling, and he's so beloved with fans. And recently he got released, and the fans kind of turned on the company for a week, and it forced the company to bring him back. They were letting him go because of his age and how much his contract was. They were like, well, he's been around for a long time, and we just don't want to pay him that kind of money. But he was one of the lowest paid wrestlers on the roster, and it's like, come on now. Everybody loves him. You can't do that. But anyway, but I was explaining to one of my friends that's a lapsed fan, and he was like, I just don't understand why it's so childish. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the best part. There's a lot that's so much fun that's childish. Like John Cena is a bad guy now, and the most beloved wrestler who is one of the oldest people currently working full-time in professional wrestling goes around talking about how he feels betrayed because he looked up to John Cena whenever he was a kid. And it's hilarious because everybody's like, that's obviously not true. This is a pushing 60-year-old man talking about how they love this guy who was their childhood hero. And then he made it his entire his entire gimmick that he was now gonna, since John Cena was a bad guy, he was gonna save wrestling by becoming Ron Cena. And it's the most like absurd, like silly stuff. Yes, it's silly. That's the point.
It's
not everything in life has to be
so
like,
serious all the
serious.
time.
Yeah.
As someone who usually asks serious questions and really tries not to, you can ask anybody I know. They'll be like, "Yep, Mars tends to ask some pretty tough questions just at the most random of times." I also try to keep it silly and light because
I'm a serious person about certain things deep down. But but I like being silly too. I don't have to be miserable.
Exactly. Like, I love using this comparison. What the heck happened to McDonald's? Why is it all gray and stuff now? Like, it used to be colorful. You took away the joy.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, the play place? Mm-hmm. Oh, man. You are right about that. Man, yeah, and it's not just McDonald's. Man, I get excited. I get excited when I see, like, an old Wendy's.
Oh, my gosh. Oh my gosh, I do too sometimes. It's been so long since I've seen one though.
They got the sunroom and you go in and there's plants.
Now it's just like a box, like a modern box, and it's like what happened here? Keep the banks and stuff looking modern. We don't need our fun play places and food places to be serious. We have enough seriousness.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with you there. Oh. Yeah. Yep.
I have to ask this question, and then we'll kind of like deviate around other things. But the two wrestlers I fixated on back in the day were the Hardy brothers. Are they still doing anything?
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, they Jeff was having a little bit of a tough time struggling with addiction for a while, and he was having some trouble, but he seems to be doing really, really well for himself right now.
That's good.
And they're both back wrestling full time. They, I do believe, are currently the tag team champions for TNA Wrestling.
Oh wow.
They were the current tag team champions, at least within the past month. So if they lost the title, they lost it very recently. But there's actually a really, really interesting partnership with a lot of wrestling companies where TNA, AAA, which is like a luchador company, NXT, which is WWE's third developmental brand company, and a lot of other like really small promotions are now actually starting to kind of work together as like a network where people come in and out of their programming. So you can have like a TNA champion come to WWE.
Interesting.
And vice versa. And so, yeah, that's the reason why it's kind of become like the Hardy Boys have actually been talked about a lot recently within the WWE fandom because they just came back to WWE with the TNA titles and defended them on a brand that wasn't even the brand they worked for.
Interesting. Back when I was watching wrestling, as I said, it's been some years. I remember there was like this weird discourse where WWE didn't want to mix with TNA, and I like was confused by that because it's like, why is there so many rivalries? Like, why can't the wrestlers just wrestle? But
so a lot of that has to do with so that goes back to the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So the way everything used to work, it used to be the territory system, as they called it. So in my area, our territory was Continental Championship Wrestling. And Continental Championship Wrestling, they billed it like, as far as any local television was concerned here, they were the largest possible wrestling promotion. They had the world champion, blah, 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 blah. But when you go up to Tennessee For instance, you would have another promotion called Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and Smoky Mountain Wrestling had the world champion, and they had the greatest stars of all time, and they did not touch each other's television markets. And the wrestlers would go, they would go to each one. They'd be a champion here, be a champion there. They would work here, they would work there, and there were these unspoken agreements, and sometimes spoken agreements very forcefully in back rooms, but with no legal repercussions, but definite real world repercussions if you break them. Kind of agreements. Very, very shady, kind of scary stuff in some situations in the 70s and 80s.
That makes sense.
And a lot of it, one of the biggest companies out there was Vince McMahon's father's company, Worldwide Wrestling Federation. And Vince McMahon Sr. had an agreement with everybody that they wouldn't touch. He basically brokered a lot of these different deals. And when the company went to Vince McMahon Jr., he decided he was going to break all of them and destroy all of the different territories and take all of the top talent. And when that happened, it burned a lot of bridges. It made a lot of people mad. And a lot of those people ended up kind of coalescing. And eventually a promotion with Turner Broadcasting called WCW happened. And then that created the Monday Night Wars. And that was WWF versus WCW. And that is kind of where the Marks takes place. During that time period where wrestling was at its most competitive between two competing large companies with money. And WWF won, and eventually they became WWE. But a lot of that bad blood absolutely stayed, and a lot of those people did not forgive and forget, and a lot of those people ended up going to TNA back and the founder of TNA was Jeff Jarrett, whose dad, Jerry Jarrett, was one of the promoters screwed over in the territory system all the way back in the 70s and 80s. And so when Vince McMahon got tied up in that big sex trafficking scandal, that's when he had to step down from WWE, and then the company was sold to TKO. And then once he is no longer in the company anymore, some of those wounds started to heal. And so now you have a lot of people trying to do business together. So
honestly, I kind of love to see that. As I said, I love people doing people things and connecting and everything. I can't stand divide. I can't stand corruption. I can't stand control and greed. Why can't we just exist as people? Yeah. And do things together that are as awesome and cool? Because one of the reasons I was drawn to wrestling at all, and why I'm probably gonna float on the outer skirts of that world for the rest of my life, is because it has a heart to it, a family feel, a community feel that you don't see elsewhere. It's almost I don't want to say this because it I don't think it hits the right spot, but I feel like wrestling, the community of it could possibly be a foundation for how other communities come together and do stuff. I don't know if that makes sense, or if you see that vision.
It is. It actually, you've actually nailed something. I've noticed that a lot. So okay, you will notice that if you go to a lot of Comic-Cons, mm-hmm. you will see pro wrestling superstars pop up.
Interesting.
If you Dragon Con, which is one of the largest Comic-Con nerd cons in the southeast United States, it's got professional wrestling, I think, every single day as like they have their own little I think they call it like Dragon Con Championship Wrestling, and they only do it at Dragon Con every year, and it's kind of like a continuous thing. And you'll see sometimes like off the record a lot of like WWE superstars will kind of like pop in because they're big fans of, you know, this comic or this anime or whatever, and they're actually like at the convention for all of the, you know, all the fandoms that they're a part of. But then wrestling is still a major part of their life, so they're gonna of course pop in and be a part of the wrestling stuff too. And there is that overlap that you see a lot. In the music world, there's a huge follow, like wrestling and music is like, I know so many musicians that if you ask them like what's one of their like goals in life, and they're like, I'd love to make like a wrestler's theme song. Like Metro Boomin has been posting, tweeting, whatever you call it, on X, Twitter, for like 2 weeks now, basically like begging to do a wrestler's theme song, like because it's one of his life goals. And you know, there's I think somebody else has said the same thing recently. And so yeah, I think you're definitely onto something there. I think there's yeah, you're onto something there for sure.
I'm like really big on energy, so not to get super spiritual mumbo jumbo on you, but I do believe in like a weird energy. Like we all have energy. Like when you walk into a room, you can tell when someone's sad. When you walk into I don't want to use this as an example per se, but when you walk into a church, you can feel like this hum, this vibration of positivity or like energy or something. Like it's not always positive in some places, but you feel
not
this.
Always positive.
You feel something, you feel it. And when I'm watching like the crowds on wrestling nights and stuff like that, and I'm like listening to the cheers and the hoorahs and the commotion, you can feel that even if you're just watching on your TV at home. You can feel like, even if everyone's there for different reasons, and they might have wrestlers that they're like, I don't like that guy, but I like that guy. Like, it's like it bringing it back to the community thing. Like, it's almost like the foundation of how people just normally behave in communities in a way. Like, I really don't know how to explain that. I'm lost on the words and the verbiage, yes. But it's the energy.
You were on to something there. So you're right. I don't want to get, I'm not like a super like religious mumbo jumbo kind of person either, but I think you are right about energy, and there is an energy in, especially when you go live. There's some people that I've changed my opinion on whether or not I like them or not as a professional wrestler based on the energy they put off live. You know, where I go, man, they've made a connection with these people that I didn't feel until I was here, and now I see why people respond the way that they respond. You know, like but you're right, like everybody doesn't have to agree on who they like, who they dislike. But what everybody does agree on is that wrestling is great. And that's a quote that's become very popular in recent years, because the professional wrestler Bray Wyatt, who recently passed away, had very close to his death, had just kind of tweeted out, just wrestling is great, just like a positive little quote, and ended up passing away very soon right after that from a heart attack. And now it's kind of become like this little like mantra of like positivity within the wrestling community, because the wrestling community can be very, very toxic, like especially the internet wrestling community.
Yeah.
But that's any community on the internet.
Yeah.
The,
The
the
internet is weird.
kinda does have a way of corrupting. It's kind of like the One Ring. It 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 starts out nice. It starts out like, oh, I can turn invisible. I can get out of these situations. But
Now it's like,
eventually,
ooh, the control.
the wraiths come.
Yeah.
Eventually, the ring wraiths find you.
I take it you are a huge J.R.R. Tolkien fan.
Not huge, but I do love Tolkien. It's honestly as much as all right. So I really, really love. I love the whole universe, but I'm also I'm like a big fan of movies. Movies are a big part of my life, and like the Lord of the Rings movies, I studied those DVDs back in like my teenage years like they were a college course because they had like the extended versions came with like appendices just like the books. And like, you know,
Wow.
Tolkien
That's
was
cool.
very so Tolkien was, you know, very you know, meticulous and had a lot of extra notes like, yo, well, you're going to need some extra context to understand this, you know. He knew. And if you had all of the real full collector's edition, let's see how many 12 disc set of the original trilogy, and it's not out on Blu-ray at all. You have to go get the DVDs from way back in the day. It showed you every detail on how to do everything that they did in those movies.
Wow.
It would teach you about production design in the most minute details, and every single aspect of it. And I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. You know, like back when I was in middle school, you know, being a kid who's like making videos on a VHS tape in the summer trying to like, I want to make movies. Now I've got, 12 discs teaching me how to do everything. So, but, you know, I think by the time I was in 10th grade, I was like, I had taken over the entire video production department at my school because
Cool.
the teachers that were in charge didn't know how to run anything. And so, like, they just needed someone to make sure it happened. And by the time that I was, like, I think my junior year, I had, like, this ambitious project that I wanted to do, like, an educational... Okay, so Georgia, I grew up in Georgia, and the state guidelines were that, like, if you did in-house video, it had to be for, like, educational purposes, and it had to be about, like, teaching you character development skills. So like that's what our school educational television program had to be about. So I knew the legal requirements, and I had this ambitious project where I wanted to bring the drama department in and all of my acting friends from our local drama department and do an educational character development version of Lord of the Rings, where we did forced perspective and all of the special effects, where we had hobbits, we had sets, we did, and we shot all of this, and it was called the Rings of Character. And you would be learning about generosity and I can't remember any of the just life skills, and just to do the legally required thing to be able to broadcast it on our local or on our in-house TV at the school. But anyway, yeah,
That's really cool. So I took film...
so yeah, I guess I like Lord of the Rings. I guess I like Tolkien.
What did Lord of the Rings make any influences into the Marks? Are there any Lord of the Rings influences in the Marks?
I don't think so. I Huh. That's surprising. There's a lot of other references though.
I did pick up on a few of them. Just for the sake of like making sure that the audience listening to us today watches it and doesn't get spoilers, we will save all of the like references and details if you would like for another episode if you want to come back.
No, you know what? I'm fine with talking about details.
Okay.
And I'll tell you the reason why. All right. I would say that it would be unfair to the audience to give away stuff from a certain portion of the movie, like the end portion. And I there's a certain amount.
Yeah.
But I would say the rest of the movie, there's so much going on that giving away a few details doesn't spoil anything.
Well, what are some references that you don't feel like other people will pick up on right away? So, like, the more hidden ones, the not as obvious references.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna give you. I will give you the most hidden one. So at the video store, when which is supposed to be the only thing I really did in the movie. I was supposed to just be the video store clerk and then kind of pop up in the backyard a little bit. But then when the rewrites happened, I ended up kind of getting shoehorned into the rest of the movie. So I guess good for me. But there is a VHS tape that's called That Guy is a Phantom. And it's like a parody of a comic book movie from the mid-'90s called The Phantom, which was my favorite comic book movie as a kid. And it was a pretty obscure DC comic that, like, they tried to make a thing, and it didn't catch on. And I think that was it really sucked. I rewatched it I keep going back to it. I still feel like it's a lot of fun it could have been a great comic book franchise, but it never caught on. And so there's a reference to it in the beginning of the movie. And there actually were a bunch of references to that movie throughout the marks that were cut. So it only shows up at the beginning. And so then it doesn't show up all the way through until the very end of the movie. In our short little minor limited theatrical run, there was an after credits scene. It is not on Tubi. We were told by the distributor that Tubi did not like to do after credit sequences, so that we needed to cut it.
Wow, Tubi.
So there was an after credit sequence that is on the Blu-ray and on the DVD, and it does tie back into the Phantom reference from the beginning of the movie. And the reason why we were okay with cutting it is, like, it really was only in there for me at that point because the rest of the Phantom jokes had been cut. So, like, you only got one at the beginning and then one in the after credit sequence, and it was like, you know what, it's fine. Don't even worry about it.
Another Easter egg.
You know,
I must find this Easter egg. Where can people purchase your Blu-ray and DVD of the marks?
So Black Flight Studios has it up on their website, and it is up on my X. And I can actually send you the link. Make sure it's in the description, so that way they can click on the store page.
I can do that.
Because if I tried to quote out an entire store page, I'd probably get it wrong, and it'd be too convoluted for people to type it in. And people want convenience these days.
Yeah, instant convenience, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. Which I guess it's not related, but it's kind of related, thinking of good and bad things.
Everything's related.
Indeed. 7 degrees of separation. I think that's the thing. Is that the thing? I think that's the thing.
I think it's 6. I think it's 6, I think is the actual number. And I've found typically that it's fewer than 6. Everything is 5 degrees of separation away.
Technically, you know someone who sort of by definition. So I find this weird because I just recently was kind of like grasped the concept of 6 degrees or 7 degrees of separation. And the example I use for myself is this. In the 70s, my mom lived in Colorado, back when they were filming The Shining at the Overlook Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
She went to a bar with a friend, and her friend had no idea who Jack Nicholson was. They're drinking. He comes in. He sits down next to them, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Jack Nicholson." He introduces himself, and my mom's friend didn't get it, but my mom got it right away. And every time I think back to that, I'm like, my mom almost had a whole conversation with the Jack Nicholson. Like, the Jack Nicholson from The Shining. Like,
yeah.
Whoa. That's awesome. And also really strange. Like, I don't want to sound like a crazy fan, like, oh my God, a celebrity. But, like, at the same time, like, it's like, that's still crazy, because like this person that you would never think you would be sitting down next to having a beer with is like having a beer next to you. Like, what's going on? That is cool.
Oh, absolutely.
I find that so cool. But I needed that icebreaker to ask this next question, because this is not my realm. It's never been my realm. I'm a little interested in it because it's relevant, but how do politics go into your movie? Like, is there any sort of politics at all in the marks?
Oh, I don't think so. But, well, that's I guess it depends on how you define politics.
That's a good point.
I look at politics through a very, very specific lens. I don't really care about what people do in their life as long as it's not negatively affecting other people. And I like to stand up for people's rights if their rights are trampled, and
as we should.
And when I view everything kind of through that lens is kind of like, I view politics in a, like, very specific, just standing up for the rights of people to be people, as long as they're not hurting anybody or taking their stuff. And like, I feel like that's empowering the individual, and like self-ownership is it transcends politics, but sometimes politics is required to accomplish those things.
I think I see what you're saying on that. Just for a little bit of my own background and stuff on how I view this. As I mentioned earlier, I dislike corruption, power, greed, and control. I don't think those things are productive when it comes to bettering ourselves and humanity, because that is just, on the energy topic, that's like allowing the energy to be held and not dispersed out, if that makes sense. It's like you're, with power, greed, corruption, control, like you're like stagnating things. You're not letting things progress.
Yes.
And on that note, as I said, this is not my world. That's why I like asking people like who probably know more than I about those worlds. Like, at the end of the day, all I want is freedom for everybody, because we all were born with freedom and free will, which are two different things. Free will and freedom are two different things. And we should all be able to have that no matter who we are as people, as long as we are not damaging property or actively going out of our way and hurting the lives and like properties and other things of other people. Like, we should be able to just be free and not under the guise of control or corruption.
That's exactly that. I mean, it's you're as a human being, you are, in my opinion, the way I see it, and I feel like it's a fact, not an opinion, but that you were born with certain rights as a human being, and anything that takes those rights away from you, whether or not it's legal or not, does not change the, like, morality. And anything that takes away your human right to exist
and just be,
and just be, now we've got a problem. Yeah,
I definitely feel that, and that's why I have such a disconnect with, like, politics in itself, because it's red or blue, it's left or right, it's this or that, and I'm like, what about we meet in the middle and it's just we the people being people doing people things? Like, what about that? What about that? Why does it need to be one or the other, or this or that or that or that, or, like, I don't get that. Like, I have a disconnect to that, and I'm trying to understand how that works, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
So, well, how do I put this? So the reason why there is a disconnect, in my opinion, between left and right, like, so much, like, that's on purpose. Because if you're arguing about left and right, you're not having the real conversation.
I like that.
The real conversation, when you look at a political spectrum, is not about the left or right. That is such a simplistic way of looking at the political spectrum, and they want you to have a simple way of looking at it, so you're not having the real conversation. The real conversation is more or less control by more or less control by the state. How much authority are you giving the state? So, by definition, the argument is more or less authoritarianism. That's the conversation that has to be had on both sides of the left or right argument. How much control and authority are you giving the state? If you have religious extremists that give the state full control of their life, it is just as bad as if you have environmental extremists that give you full control, or the state full control of your life. If you in different ways. You see what I'm saying? Like, if they're going to still use state control to control your life, they're probably going to pass, on both sides of that argument, they're probably going to pass reproductive laws that affect your life. They're probably going to pass housing laws that affect your life. They're going to pass economic laws that affect your life. Now, on both sides of that equation, in the farthest authoritarian extremes. So the conversation that needs to be had is, how much power are we willing to give up? How much authority are we willing to give up? And then the other question that has to be asked as a follow-up question is, what happens if we're willing to give up a lot of power to a good person, and the person who takes control after them is a bad person? How do we keep that bad person from using all of the power that we just willingly gave up? And
that's a good question.
People are not typically asking that question, and they're also not typically prepared to answer the question. I have yet to find anyone who has an answer to it on how to eliminate that problem. I don't want to name any specific names, but I was having this exact conversation with someone, and they were very concerned about someone getting elected, and they were very adamant about the other person being the best person that's ever been in the political sphere in their lifetime, and that's who the real future was. And they maintained that person needed to be elected, and then we needed to really give them a lot of control, and that was the only way to fix all of our problems. And I said, you may be right, but what happens if in 4 years the American public decided that by a slim margin that you were wrong, and they put the person that you absolutely fear the most in that position, and you just handed them
All the
more power. All the, like, how do you eliminate that risk? And that is I think the big question that we've been trying to figure out in America for a while. But I don't think we've answered it yet. And personally, I would love to see it clarified in the Constitution that people own themselves. I know it's like a weird thing to say, because we've technically abolished slavery, but we didn't, if you read the language. And if a very precisely written constitutional amendment on self-ownership could go a long way to solve a lot of the problems that we have socially, just like the political discourse, because it's going to take a lot of things off the table, and you're not going to have the divisive things where people are arguing about something that truly can't even be affected by policy, and when we try, we actively make it worse. So it's going to take a lot of that off the table, and then once that's off the table, you start to heal that wound, the discourse where people don't get along, and then it actually forces politicians to address the real problems that actually exist and that aren't just divisive propaganda.
Now, just everything I speak on, especially like just in general, is my own experience or my own personal opinion, my own perspective. So I'm not trying, I'm just going to say this now, like, I'm not trying to like influence or like, you know, I'm here to learn, and I'm here to like experience, right? It may not be.
I love that. I'm loving this. This is a fun conversation, Mars.
It may not be my world. I may not have all the verbiage. I may not know all the names and who all holds the money and all of that stuff. Same
here.
But what I do know is this. I see such a discourse and such a divide where divides do not need to exist. And it hurts me because, as I've stated before, I love seeing people prosper and doing people things and just simply existing as people, because there is nothing more beautiful than to be human and experiencing that with other humans. And I think for me, my solution, if we can call it that, air quote solution, is the community level. Bringing things to the people at the community level. Literally saying, fuck you, government. And being like, all right, how are we going to feed each other? How are we going to clothe each other? How are we going to raise our kids? How are we going to educate ourselves? Like, what are we going to do together as communities to help each other? Because we almost kind of have to ignore what's going on politically in the money and power and corruption game. Like, we almost kind of have to ignore it because we can't fix it. We can't just vote the right people in anymore, because from my perspective, it doesn't matter. It really
doesn't.
like they're all lobbyists and money hoarders and stuff like that. So, I mean, what are we going to do together as communities, as people, as humans? Like, that's my solution personally for me. Like, that's why I'm trying to build that Discord community and have this podcast and talk to other people, because I think if we just talk like this and don't listen to the legacy media or social media and just talk to each other, we might actually be able to get rid of the discourse, get rid of the corruption and problems that are happening. Like, I'm not saying like we're gonna have like the perfect utopia and everything's gonna be all peachy keen and we'll all sing kumbaya all the time, but I think we can have an almost utopia if we do that.
No, for sure. No, yeah, I mean, so boy, there's so many places that this conversation, so many directions, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to talk about. So first of all, I think are you familiar with the Rainbow Gathering?
I feel like that name rings a bell or something off in the far distance of my mind, but no? Question mark?
So I don't know enough about it to really go into like super detail, but I've heard Vermin Supreme talk about it to me a lot because he goes all the time, and it's what you are describing, where it's a giant community. It's been going on for decades. I don't even know how. I mean, probably since the old school hippie movement.
Cool.
And they come together in specific places. I don't know the scheduling and how it works, but they all descend, and it's thousands of them, and they show up and they take over an area. They all go camping together, and it just becomes basically an ungoverned city in the woods.
That is so cool. Holy heck.
Yeah. So there's a documentary on Vermin that exists, that they follow him at the Rainbow Gathering some. So I highly recommend you check that out.
What's the documentary called?
Supreme. Who is Vermin Supreme? And then I believe there's a follow-up called This is Vermin Supreme. But Who is Vermin Supreme definitely is. It's so good. But the Rainbow Gathering, even as someone who, like, I'm so interested in the idea, I am still like, I can't wrap my head around it, and I have not gone. I keep being told by different people, like, you should go. You need to experience it. You need to. So maybe one of these days I will.
If it is coming up soon, this might be your sign. You're on your favorite numbered episode, and we're talking about this. I think it might be a sign.
That's true. Well, I'm gonna look and see when it's coming up. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's what I need.
And we can definitely have an episode after you come back from your Rainbow Gathering sabbatical.
Well, I mean, so what? I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term rainbow anarchist, but I guess that's like you believe you're not no flavor of you just believe in
people.
Anybody can, yeah.
I believe in people. That is like the simple terms for it. I think that's how I describe it. Is I don't believe in. I mean, I'm not super religious. I studied a lot of philosophy and theology when I was growing up because I had to make sense of some trauma that I went through as a child. Sure. And the thing that I learned is that we all kind of have a very similar belief. Even people who are like, I don't believe anything. I'm a total atheist, agnostic, blah, blah, blah. Like, you have some belief in there. I know, because I used to be just like you. And there's so many wild things that we can experience as people, and just the fundamental, like, I just believe in people, and I believe anything is possible and also impossible.
I was having a conversation. I'm not going to name names because I don't.
Out of respect for them.
I don't want to. Yeah, out of respect. But I was having a conversation with. I was at a political convention, and cool. I was at an after party, and I was talking to a guy who I didn't realize at the time was basically Fox News's token atheist. Like, when they need an atheist to come on and bash and argue with, they just bring him on. And
good job, Fox.
So anyway, and he's proud of it. He loves it. He loves the fact, like, he knows he knows they're gonna bring him on. He's going to get to hawk his book or whatever, and they're going to be mean to him. And like he like 100% was telling me like they're so nice before, and then you could see them get into character, and then they're going to be mean to me. Yeah, and it's like, anyway, besides the point. And we were kind of discussing just kind of like quantum mechanics.
Ooh.
And the conversation was kind of going into some like weird places philosophically and things like that. And he basically came to the conclusion that he believes in predestination, which is like, that's like a foundational like religious belief for a lot of people, you know, like. And I found that to be so interesting, because he's a staunch atheist. He's Fox News's token atheist, but deep down he believes in predestination. And I think you're onto something, that there's something in everybody kind of making everybody look in certain places and gravitate in certain directions, and they all kind of believe certain things, whether or not they want to admit it.
And it's so funny. It's like, if you just admit it, you know how much freedom you are now giving yourself by letting go of that ideology that it's just this one way, this one thing. It's like, life is so much more nuanced than that. I call that the collective belief, like, that we all kind of have, even if we don't admit it. I call that two different things. I call that the human collective, the subconscious human collective, and I also call it the human condition. It's just one of the many facets of what it means to be human. And
well, there's two different ways I think that people can operate. I think you can. I know it's kind of maybe a little oversimplistic to say two different ways, but I feel like it's only two, maybe. You can either say, I am a human, and I would love to know everything, and I'm going to constantly be looking for new knowledge and perspectives and to experience new things, but I will never know everything, and I can never know everything, and it's okay to not know everything, and it would be foolish of me to think I can know everything. There's that, and then there's the other side where you fully believe that you have a full grasp on everything, that your way is the highway, and that anybody else that's got a different perspective is very wrong and needs to be fixed.
On the subject
I think those are the two.
Go ahead.
Those are the two ways.
On the subject of like free will and stuff like that, like, people are entitled to live in their closed-minded boxes. That's fine. I really hope it works for them, but from my perspective, I don't think it does, because it doesn't work for me. I have to be a lifelong learner. I have to question everything that I see, because, like, there's so much knowledge out there. There's so many people and, like, things and history and, like, future to, like, learn from. And yeah, I'm never going to know anything. I sure would like to know everything, but that's never going to happen.
I mean, but you've got some people that are real confident.
Oh, yeah.
And
those people I consider toxic.
Yeah, they fall into that other box.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't want to name names, but I do know some of those.
Yeah.
And I feel bad, because I'm like, I want to speak on their level. I want to speak on the level that they understand, that they know everything level, but it's just not something I can do, because maybe I haven't figured it out yet. Maybe I'm not that great at conversational things yet with the public, but I don't know. Maybe one day I will be. Maybe I'll understand how every verbiage works and the different sides. But for now, I'm going to try to stick with the people who get the learning mindset, the lifelong learner and growth mindset, because that's kind of what we're describing here.
English. You'll never be able to fully distill this complicated language down with as many different ways that words can possibly mean certain things and be spelled. Anyway, but yeah, I see your point. It's a good goal to strive for it, but
it might be.
I sit in box number 1. I know that I'll never fully have a grasp on everything.
Isn't it like kind of fun though to kind of just be learning all the time? Like, you think you know one thing and then you get fed new information. You're like, wait a minute, Eureka! There's something totally new here. Like it's like Christmas almost, or like your birthday. Like you get a present and you're like, oh my God, it's knowledge. It's a knowledge.
Yeah. No, if I go a day without learning something, it was a very boring day.
Mm-hmm. What have you learned today so far?
Ooh, what have I learned today? Well, I mean, I learned a lot about you today. I learned a lot about your worldview is very, very similar to mine from this conversation. I feel like we gravitated towards each other randomly as strangers on the internet, and that's kind of crazy to me. But so that's really cool. So yeah, it was nice to meet somebody else that believes in humans and people.
As I said in our emails, I did do a little bit of a background on you, because if you type in anybody's name, you'll find a lot of public or non-public stuff. And I learned.
I want to say thank you for that, because I'm always shocked when someone Googles me, and thank you for doing that, because it definitely adds to the conversation.
There's a term. I can't remember what it is. It has to do with the area that you are surrounded in. Something.
The wiregrass.
The wiregrass. Yes, that. Thank you. Oh my gosh, it was on the tip of my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me, like, I'm from the Southwest. I have not ventured farther than Las Vegas or South Padre Island, Texas, and that was when I was like a little kid. What is the wiregrass area like? Like, what is the culture? What is the area like in your perspective?
Okay. Okay, so if you were going to compare it to definitely out west, and I absolutely love going out west, just for the lack of humidity compared to this area.
I need the humidity.
Wet is the number one descriptor that I would have. It's the air is thick. It's like when you go outside, you put on water weight. It's it's humid. It is 100% humidity almost all the time.
Even in winter?
So, okay, maybe not in the winter, but it's still pretty high in the winter. So that's the number one thing. But the other thing that I've recently become increasingly more and more concerned about here living in the Southeast in the Wiregrass area is kudzu. Are you familiar with this plant?
Isn't it like an invasive species plant?
It is. It is an invasive species plant. Kudzu grows very, very, very well in the Southeast United States. It can grow pretty much everywhere in the United States, but winters kill it in some places, and then summers kill it in other places. But it's an invasive species, and I've recently learned that we stopped counting how many acres that we've lost to it, and that's pretty concerning because we stopped counting, and it was close to 100 million acres in the 90s when we stopped counting.
Okay. Wow.
And so every day in the Wiregrass, I see more and more of this kudzu. And I was on The Walking Dead, and I keep reflecting on it, and I start to wonder, was I in pro kudzu propaganda? Because none of the shots show that the kudzu, the invasive species, has taken over the South after the zombie apocalypse, which absolutely would happen, because you cannot kill it in the Southeast United States. It will not die if it is over a year old. If its primary root, which kind of operates like a queen, becomes a year old, you cannot kill it without rendering the land toxic for 10 years.
Wow.
And we've been, the Southeast has been overrun. It's been overrun. And so that's what it's like living in the Wiregrass.
So
that's what all of you people outside of the Southeast need to be concerned about, that the legacy media is not telling you, is that the kudzu is taking over. The kudzu is taking over.
I don't think it's, I had a suspicion. I was like, maybe it's not people zombies we need to be worried about. What are the plants doing? And now I'm more scared of plants than I've ever been. Oh, that's nice.
Listen, man, this is one of my favorite stories to tell for real. So the way that the kudzu got planted, it was on purpose. It was like during the World's Fair in the late 1800s, it was brought over here by a Japanese scientist. And I know this sounds like a horror movie. It was brought over to the United States by a Japanese scientist, and he was presenting it at the World's Fair as a way to grow shade on your gazebo in the summer, so you didn't have in the winter, it would retract, and you would have sunlight.
Interesting.
And nobody thought it was a good idea, and he tried. But there was one guy who was like, "I'm gonna buy some of that. I'm gonna feed it to my livestock," because they were telling everybody it grows really fast. That's the selling point. So he had it planted. He was growing it. He was baling it and then letting it dry out, and then it kind of became a productive business for him. And what he kind of noticed was it was kind of letting his soil rejuvenate a little bit. And he was like, oh, this is working out great. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture kind of caught notice, because there was a problem with erosion in the Southeast, and they were like, if there was only something we could do about it. And one of the workers was like, how about we give them this kudzu? And they were like, that's a fantastic idea, but how are we going to convince the South to plant kudzu instead of crops, to let their crops rest? And they're like, well, what if we wrote them a check and then told them that Jesus sent the kudzu? And so they rolled out this propaganda campaign throughout the South on the radio, telling everyone that it was sent by Jesus and that they needed to plant it and that they were going to get a check. And so these farmers who were already struggling and starving and having trouble making ends meet because their farmland was hit by this massive erosion that they hadn't quite figured out what the cause of was, but it was just poor soil management practices, that they were told what the solution was. So they got put on this 5-year program where they were told to plant kudzu all across their land. And so all of their farmland got planted.
Covered in kudzu.
It aged 5 years. And as we know, once a primary root becomes 1 year old, it becomes impossible to kill. So 5 years later, when the program was over and they were no longer eligible to receive the check from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they then needed to start farming again, but they couldn't.
Lovely.
Because their land had been rendered useless.
Lovely.
By the kudzu. And that problem was monitored for a while. They tried to do something about it. The U.S. Department of Agriculture started saying that it was now the problem of the wildlife management, and then they were saying it was the problem of somebody else. And then eventually the dispute on whose problem it was came to a head, and the decision was made that it was nobody's problem. So they stopped counting how many acres and how many millions of acres we've lost. It is illegal to plant or deal with kudzu at all. It's illegal to also research kudzu to try and figure out a way to get rid of it. So
what are the retaliations if you do research kudzu? Does the FBI knock on your door one day and be like, hey, you've been researching kudzu?
I really don't know. I don't think it would be the FBI, but I do think you might get a stern letter from some sort of organization, which, by the way, they say that it's nobody's responsibility, but so who's sending the letter?
That's great question. Is that where cow cud came from? Is the kudzu because... Maybe. Interesting.
But so there is a solution. The internet does say that we should not panic, that if we just were to increase the goat population, that goats can eat and process enough kudzu to like actually make an impact. And so if you eat the kudzu and poop it out, then it does not replant itself. But the sap itself acts as a seed. So just by cutting down the plant itself, anything that what you touched cuts, it just immediately plants itself.
I don't know what your dietary things are, but I'm just thinking if we do increase the goat population, that kind of fixes sorta the food problem that we seem to think we all have, which we might. That's not my world. I'm not a farmer or an agricultural advocate human. I want to be. Don't know enough yet. I'm working on that. What if we do increase the goat population? That would be more goat milk, and you could also use more goat products. Like, do goats produce hair? Is that a thing goats do?
Goats do a lot. Yeah, I'm pro goat. I like a goat.
Goats are cool.
I would be remiss if I didn't say that the sitting president of the alternate reality of the United States, Vermin Supreme, does advocate for free ponies, and that the ponies themselves could potentially eat some of this kudzu. So maybe if we could get some ponies and some goats and get this thing moving,
My pony is named Midnight, by the way. What's yours?
Claudette.
I like that.
Claudette was my first pony, but Vermin did gift me a second pony, and I'm not supposed to tell anyone.
Oh, well, we'll try to keep that off the record. I'm sure no one heard that part. I'm sure
and that pony's name is Conquest.
Nice. I actually...
But don't tell anyone.
I won't.
It's between us.
I do follow Vermin, I think, on Twitter X, because I noticed that you guys did stuff together, because I get your posts in my feed sometimes, and I'm like, who is this? Follow. Because
time-traveling wizard, just your standard time-traveling, boot-wearing head wizard.
I love that. It's obviously it's no secret. I kind of like the absurdity of things sometimes, because it's like, why not? Why not have it? Why not exist in a world where fun things are? But let's see. I had a point. I had a thought that I wanted to bring to this. All hail our alternate reality president and sitting vice president.
Which, by the way, I say alternate reality because I don't know which reality you're in. So you can live in the alternate reality if you want to. People live in their own little bubble of reality all the time. So if you want Vermin Supreme to be your president, Vermin Supreme's your president. Like, all you have to do is say it. It doesn't matter
That's
and
fair.
then you're in the reality.
Then
So-
Vermin Supreme is my president, and I am happy to be under his nation. Let's see.
There you go. See, welcome to the right reality.
Thank you.
The fun reality.
The reality where people matter. What was I gonna say? I really did have like a whole thing I was thinking of, and I lost it. How long?
It happens to me all the time.
Right? Like, what is that? Oh, a question. If you could be or play any supervillain, who would you be and why?
Ooh, a supervillain.
I know that kind of goes against who we are as people to be supervillains, but
okay. I like being a villain though.
okay.
Like as an actor, I feel like I can tap in. So, how do you put this? So we've talked about a lot about like energy, and you can tell when somebody's got like a bad energy.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel it, you know, like, ooh, something's going on there. As an actor, and as somebody that can feel that, I guess, it is interesting to tap into that, because I'm like, I notice it, and I know that that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
But I notice all of the things that are not me, and it's easy to become that as an actor, because it's all of these. I've noticed all of these things. I've been able to notice all of these mannerisms, or like the way people. I don't know. I feel like a lot is in the eyes. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's like if I'm playing somebody very evil, or maybe even suspected of being evil, like, I feel like I can see it in my eyes. So, I don't know. I have not decided which supervillain I want to play, but I definitely enjoy playing a villain for that purpose, though, because it's so unlike me. I don't really like playing me. I absolutely hated playing myself in the Marks. Like, it was awkward. It made me feel weird. It made me second guess, like, how would I do this? And it's like, why are you second guessing how you would do something? You would just do it. Why are you so in your head? And that's like, I don't know. I guess maybe something I probably struggle with even in real life. You know, sometimes, like, you know, lack of confidence. You know, sometimes you're like, think of like, oh, am I upsetting these people, or how do these people like me, or do these, you know what I mean? Like, people are always worried about that kind of stuff. So it becomes heightened, I guess, as an actor, whatever you're trying to play yourself, or at least it did for me. But anyway, supervillain. Would this be like a comic book? I would be
Let's go with comic
Riddler.
book. The Riddler? Ooh, that's a good one.
Riddler. I've always felt very close to the Riddler. Like, I think it's because Jim Carrey, though. I've always liked Jim Carrey, and he was such a fun supervillain back in the 90s, even though for some reason, like, people kind of hate on those movies now. They're too silly. People want, I don't know why. I guess that we went through a phase as moviegoers where we wanted gritty from comic book movies, and those Batman movies in the 90s were silly.
I will
cheesy.
admit, I don't watch a lot of Marvel. I've floated in and out of that world. So I have watched some Batman, obviously, like back in the day. It's been some years. I understand what you mean by gritty. I watched Daredevil. I feel like that had a lot of grit to it, like a lot of depth and darkness that I'm like, is this really necessary for this kind of show? Like, is there a way to make it happier or like more joyful?
Can we lighten the mood a little bit?
Yeah. Like, I mean, it was so intense.
That's the thing. Even in really dark situations, people make jokes.
Coping mechanism. Not even just that. Like, it's more than that. It's also like a way to like tie and connect the badness to the goodness, because yin and yang kind of thing, like a push and pull.
So when you completely take out any type of like humor from something, I think you start to lose. You lose the humanity for sure. You lose the reality. That's for sure.
I can agree to that. Yep.
So then there you go. There's the Riddler. You know, the Riddler was always kind of a comedic villain, except maybe in the new Batman, where the Riddler. Oh, I don't know. He was still kind of a little. Nope. I don't know.
How do you feel?
It was pretty dark.
Weird sidestep, but how do you feel about Robert Patterson? Did I get the name right? Playing Batman.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
That's the one where the new Riddler was in it. I think he did a fine job as an actor, but as a movie though, that movie I definitely think could have used a little comedy from the Riddler side, because that Riddler was like kind of horrifying. If we're being honest, that Riddler was like
it left a skin crawly feeling.
Yeah.
I remember watching that movie. I think Patterson did a wonderful job as Batman. I don't understand why people are like, "Oh, he's a bad Batman." Like, no. I feel like
it's the internet and they like to be mean.
Yeah, and they want to remember his role when he was the sparkly vampire, and it's like, no, that was then. Now he's Batman. Now he's not in Twilight, okay? But Twilight was an interesting movie. I watched all of them, admittedly. I try not to admit that, because weird movies in a way, and apparently Stephanie lives in Arizona, which I also find strange that she's like a county away.
Right.
But great movie. I like that movie, and I do remember like the Riddler, so dark, so thriller, like that.
It was very dark.
That gave me more thriller vibes, not comic vibes. Aren't comic books supposed to be fun and joyful and colorful? Like, I don't know. I don't know.
So I think we're starting to see more and more that the negativity of the internet is not representative of society as a whole, and that the internet is wrong about things. And I'll give you like an example. Right now, just a few days ago was like the new Nintendo system came out, and it was like all over the place. All the lines and everybody's like just the crowds and the stores that looks basically like Black Friday, you know? And, you know, I think there was some Target that had like a post where they had like 900 pre-orders they were trying to deal with just in one store. And the internet just a day prior had 100% decided, and it was fact, not opinion, that it was going to fail and that literally no one was going to buy it. And like there were articles everywhere, and I find it to be quite hilarious because like that's just the latest example of the internet posting negativity as clickbait and then being very wrong.
I think I saw an article pop up that said in the first day of the Switch 2 release, and I could be quoting this entirely wrong, so don't quote me, but it sold like 3.5 million units in just the first day, and it could be a different number, but the fact that it's like a huge amount of like, I expected that. I expected people to want to get the new Switch system, because even though it doesn't have like the OLED screen, like the OLED Switch, which is kind of disappointing. It's like, what the heck, Nintendo?
It is a little bit.
I also was like, you know, new system. They have that fancy dancy mouse control now that people will be able to play like Stardew Valley easier with. So it's like, of course it's gonna sell. It's Nintendo. We have the new fangled technology. It's out now, and we can go get it. Some of us. I can't get it yet. I don't want to get it yet.
I can't get it yet either.
I kind of want to wait till they come out with the 2.0 of the 2, because OLED
the
screen.
battery life is a little low.
That too.
From what I hear.
That too. It's less than the OLED.
But didn't it? I believe, and I don't know the exact number, but I'm relatively positive that what I'm saying is factual. If not very, very, very close. I do believe that on day one, the Switch 2 outsold Switch 1's first year.
It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case.
And 2 days prior to that, everyone had decided on the internet that it was going to flop.
I remember that.
Nintendo was price gouging for being, which by the way, the version with a game is the same price as an Xbox, which does not come with a game. But Nintendo is price gouging with their system that costs less. I find that to be the logic is wild. Now, it is a steep price tag. Don't get me wrong, but I do believe that everything is becoming more and more expensive, and I think that that's the overall problem, is that everything is expensive.
Indeed. On that note, I actually have some opinions about that. Of course I do.
Yeah.
I think what I don't mind systems getting more expensive if they're getting better, and this system is better, and that is fine. Go ahead and be pricey. What I mind is the fact that wages do not seem to be reflecting that things are getting better. Why is the economy pushing out better and more expensive things, which is fine, but on the flip side, why aren't wages also increasing? That's my bother. That's my disconnect. That's my I'm okay with prices increasing. I'm okay with games increasing in price if they're releasing full games that aren't buggy and glitchy. That too.
Oh, yeah. Ugh.
If I don't...
Yeah.
I really don't mind...
That's a can of worms right there.
Yeah. I have a great example of certain games that should not be $70, $80 that still break even after 2.5 years of being out. That's very pointed. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You're exactly right. I think that's the biggest issue, is that stuff is still going up in price, and wages are staying the same. But the other side of that is that inflation is still happening. People there was a big emphasis on we've got to do something about the inflation. We have to do something about the inflation for the past year, during the election cycle. But inflation has not been solved. That it's still happening. Some of the prices have gone down, but those were not inflationary prices. Those were prices got out of whack because there was a supply chain problem. Our inflation problem's been going on as long as we've been alive, and until we fix that, we can keep trying to play catch up with the wages, but we've got to do something about that. The way that the United States creates inflation, it's through exploiting people. That's really what it boils down to. It's
Greed.
Created by the banking system and greed. It's inflation not because we've had inflation happen in the United States because there's been some sort of national emergency, and it caused inflation, dealing with the problem. That's one thing. It's not great. It still sucked that it happened. But creating inflation on purpose and treating it like it's a good thing for 100 years just to create more wealth for already wealthy people and to pay for authoritarian programs to exist, that's a next level kind of evil. Because it really hurts people on a day-to-day basis.
At some At some point, rising of costs becomes too much. I know I say, like, I'm okay with prices increasing if X, Y, and Z happens, but at some point, the costs do become too much. At some point, you need to be like, okay, this has now reached the maximum value that it can have. And that's why I hate money. It's like, why can't we just exchange things? But then again, I also understand because, you know, an economic example, you can't be like, hey, I have these cows, give me the worth of cow in hay or something. I don't know.
I mean, to an extent, I mean, in the past, I would say that that would have been very fair. But I do think that we as humans are very smart. And we've come a long way. And there's been a lot of thought that has been put into how systems could work better and how things in society could be better. And we constantly have done that. I mean, that's how this country was founded. We were trying to do better than what was currently happening, you know? And that's how a lot of current, you know, constitutions, it may be a country that existed for a long time, but their current system of government was them trying to do better than their forefathers. But if society were, we not to Illuminati confirmed here, but like we do kind of funnel power up as a pyramid. You know, we have the working class people, and we do funnel everything up. We always pass the responsibility and the worries, like, this is a problem. I don't know if I can figure out how to do it, but I'm going to pass the responsibility. You know, I'm going to, I don't think I can solve this. I'm going to pass the responsibility instead of, well, hang on. And we've created this system that's like a pyramid. But if it was the other way around, where it was like empowering people, and the system had the least amount of power. Like, the system is there for when everything has like fallen through like a series of nets of people trying to figure out how to deal with it. And when people as a society just have not been able to figure it out, it finally becomes it's like such a minute thing, and it's like, okay, well, that minute responsibility falls on the system. It's a minute responsibility. The real responsibility falls on everybody as a whole. And what that would look like in practice is very different depending on where you live. Sometimes you're gonna live in a small town, and it's gonna be very, very decentralized, and you're not gonna have a lot of you may not even really have a need for any type of like local security team that like worries about like making sure that crime rates are down or is out making sure that nothing is going on. You might not even really need that in some places. You know what I mean? Like you some places are so small that the local police department could be just like the volunteer fire department. So small that like you don't even really need them most of the time, because there's never anybody breaking into anybody's house. Everybody works together. That could function as a society. But then there's other places where like you might have such a large population that you do need some sort of system put in place. And some people might not want to live there. And being able to have like the free movement of people between different communities based on what is right for their lifestyle and how they want to live their life. You've got some people that may not even want to have neighbors close by, and they just want to live off in the woods, and they don't want to fall under some sort of like solar regulation or like they're being told that they can't collect
Rainwater.
rainwater, or and like all of these like just weird things to tell a human when they're not hurting anyone. Like if everything was structured in that way to where it was like you could have people working and living together in ways that work well for them, and maybe somebody's way doesn't work in the way that that they want it to work for them, you know, like I don't like this community anymore. I thought I would. I'm going to go somewhere else. And they're going to have a story about why things don't work in Donaldsonville, Georgia, you know, and they're going to move away and they're going to live, you know, in you know, Stone Mountain, Tennessee, and they're going to have a story about like, hey, well, I know I know that everybody's kind of looking at doing this here in town, but maybe we don't want to do that because we tried that over here and it didn't work out, you know? And they share that information, and that only works though whenever you function as a community.
Mm-hmm.
And which I think is exactly what you're trying to, like, you know, what you're trying to build.
For me, my foundation on the community building with the Digital Quill family is what I'm calling it, because at the end of the day, it's just people coming together. What I want to do is I want to create a hub that isn't only just one community, but several communities. I think my weird experience, my weird brain sphere tells me that once upon a time, we did have an almost utopia. Before power, greed, control, all of this stuff became a problem. Like, I think we almost used to have, like, yes, we had different viewpoints. Yes, we had differing beliefs. Yes, different things, you know, different minds, different lives. But I think at one point we had more community and more connectivity than we do now. And I'm trying to figure out a way to bring that back in a modern way, because we have the internet now, so it's easier than ever to like connect other people and connect communities that may not otherwise have been connected and share the ideas, because the name of the game is not control. It's how do we have better, or how do we become better people ourselves at the individual level, and how do we become better at the societal level so that other people are benefiting and future generations are benefiting, because that's kind of important to me. And I say kind of, but I mean like it's super important to me, because my biggest fear at this time in my life is the destruction of humanity. It is the extinction of us, because we're so close to that. I mean, we have population decreasing on some levels, like we have disconnects, and it's like, but guys, I'm pansexual and androgynous. I have had a lot of lives. I might not look like it, but like, as I said earlier, like it bothers me to see this disconnect, because humans working together and like growing together is so beautiful. It's so beautiful to see that happen. I can't get over that. I can't get over it. I've tried to ignore it, but I can't, because people.
Well, there's a reality where people don't work together and they fight each other and they're in constant disagreement. And then there's another reality where they do. And you could live in that one if you want.
I try to live in that one.
We can keep trying to find more people and bring them through the portal. And they can come to this reality too.
I believe some people also call that getting out of the matrix.
Yes.
Cutting the cord or something like that.
Something like that.
I actually saw that movie a couple years ago. Wild movie. It really put things into perspective.
I know there's a big a tendency to not like reboots or long-awaited sequels, but I actually really did enjoy the fourth movie, even though it was years down the line, and definitely
Did I lose you?
bring on previous concepts. I think that that's kind of necessary because I think it nailed.
For some reason. Can you hear me?
And hello?
Oh, there you are. Can you hear me? Sorry, I have no idea
I can.
what. Okay. You might need to repeat some of what you just said.
Yeah. I don't know exactly where I was, but I was basically saying that, like, I know there's like a tendency to like kind of not like reboots and long-awaited sequels, but I enjoyed the fourth Matrix movie because of there was like a self-awareness to it where it was fully aware that it was just rehashing the idea of the Matrix again, which I guess was people's argument, that they were just rehashing the same thing. But at the same time, the concept of the Matrix has kind of grown since like the original version. You know, the 1999 pre-Y2K version wasn't thinking about hyper-realistic video games where you're going to be playing in the simulation voluntarily. You know?
Mm-hmm.
That's only something that modern, a post-Matrix world would think of. You have to have had the first Matrix movie to influence the zeitgeist of a society to then have society go like create that. So even in the Matrix universe, the Matrix movies had to exist, kind of. You know, it's weird. It's bizarre.
I still need to see the next or the latest one, and I know what you mean.
Well then, I don't think that's a spoiler at all. What I said.
I don't mind spoilers. For me, spoilers kind of go in one ear out the other because I tend to have like a blank slate when it comes to reading or watching or playing like games. Like if I do anything media related, like I try to have like a blank slate mind about it, because even if I've heard other things and like opinions and stuff, because it's like I may not be an actor, but I do have such an appreciation for filmmaking and like just all of that. Like I don't appreciate the industry because the industry itself is kind of, but I do appreciate the art and the form and everything. And before I started deciding that I wanted to be a writer and public speaker when I was really young, like 6 or 7, and that as my career, as my life path. And then when I was around middle school, high school, I decided that photography was going to be added to that because I got my first camera when I was like 8 or 9. I started really using it in middle school, and then I started taking photography classes my high school years. And I was like, ooh, photography, writing, combine the two, I can do this. And that's when I decided, like, filmmaking is just a form of photography. It's like the expert level advanced form of photography, because photography is drawing
motion pictures.
Yes. Photography is drawing or writing with light. Filmmaking is essentially the same thing. It's drawing or writing with light and then some. It's advanced. It's like what I wanted to eventually work up to with photography, but life has taken different paths now.
It's with light and sound.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Manipulating sound waves. Unless you're, I think, I get my Mels mixed up, and I hate myself for this sometimes, because Mel Gibson and Mel Brooks, I like them both as directors and actors. But
Brooks did The Silent.
Yes, that movie was so good. I loved that. I took film study my senior year of high school, and I saw Gone with the Wind over several days. That is one of the longest movies I've ever seen.
Man.
Oh my God.
I hope to one day be in a position to where I can make an old movie. Like, I want to make a movie, like, the way that cool. They shot all of those old films, and then the coloration process, like it's not realistic. It's very hyper stylized. And like nowadays, like it's almost impossible to do with like modern stuff. Like you're basically having to run like filters on it, to try and make it look like the lower quality of the olden eras. But I think it would be a lot of fun. But yeah, Mel Brooks also amazing.
I also am a fan of Alfred Hitchcock. A lot of people think of The Birds. I personally am a huge fan of Rear Window. Rear Window?
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's a good one. I recommend that. I do. I recommend that one. That actually, if I'm not mistaken, has had... I can't remember the word, which is bad of me being a writer, but not allegories, anecdotes, something. You know how like sometimes you'll see like certain media taken in and put in like modern like media or something like that, like
yeah.
Not anecdotes. Is it? I'm overthinking this, aren't I?
No, I don't think it's anecdote. I think we might be overthinking it though. Illusion?
Yes, maybe.
Like
yes.
But not yes, with the A, right? No.
One very
like
famous, yes, alluded, something. But one very famous scene that actually is shown a lot in different like media or different shows and movies, and I can't remember what movie it originated from, but it's the line worker scene where it's two people, they're standing in front of a conveyor belt, and it's kind of crazy because they're either having to sort something or it's such a big thing in film, and I'm kicking myself for not having like the idea.
I think I know what you're talking about. There's another, what's the name of that other Alfred Hitchcock movie where like the camera does that weird like the background zooms while the person stays in focus, and it's from the movie where the guy's got like a fear of heights.
Oh, yeah.
And he literally created that camera move for expressing the fear of heights. And
I remember that.
Now people use it anytime like there's like a realization or like
Vertigo.
The walls come crashing in. Vertigo.
It was Vertigo. And it's called Rear Window, by the way, a 1954 film. Vertigo. Yeah, that was another one I saw. That one had such... I remember that scene because like the way they had to portray the fear of heights and everything, like that was so fundamental in film. That was...
Yeah, it changed everything.
Let's see. What is something you admire about filmmaking and just movie making in that like world?
I mean, I've always liked to play pretend. I've always I had under the cabinet in the bathroom growing up, I had so many costumes, and I wore costumes so much that there were, I believe, 3 entire like Rubbermaid containers of random costumes that like I had stored in my bathroom as a kid that I like, nice. I want to dress up like this today, and I'm a Power Ranger, I'm Sonic, I'm a ninja, I'm whatever character I've made up, combining all of these other things. So I've always enjoyed that. So I guess probably that plays a large role in why I've enjoyed like filmmaking, because it's like when you expand it past just like playing dress up, like, oh, well, you're also going to dress up the entire world, like you're going to dress like the entire shot becomes like something you have to decorate. You have to look at I like to look at all the details, and like down to like even what I wear, on screen. And the marks, I was remarking to like somebody else who's like a big fan of pro wrestling, that like, and they really appreciated it. I was like, but in pro wrestling, everybody always wears in-universe stuff. Like the wrestlers wear their t-shirt or somebody else's t-shirt. They wear, most of the time, they're wearing in-universe stuff from the wrestling promotion. And I wanted to do the same thing in the marks. So all of my clothes are custom made. Almost all of my clothes. And I think there's 2 shirts that I felt like they were just too good for me to not wear them in the movie. So I had them on but other than that, everything else is custom made, and it's like in-universe stuff.
Cool.
But because the fun of like coming up, I get to design it. Like, there's a Phantom reference. There's one of them. There's a scene where I'm wearing a purple shirt with a skull on it that is in one of the scenes, and that is a reference to the Phantom franchise.
Nice.
So there's another one. Yeah, and that was all just to keep everything in universe. There's
cool.
like there's a scene where I'm wearing like a Brendan Fraser for President shirt, and that's like custom made in universe stuff. Like everything.
Speaking of
everything that's on screen could be changed, and that's what I think is so much fun about filmmaking, I guess.
Speaking of the Brandon Fraser shirt, where did you get that fan club shirt?
Oh no, that was all made by the like costume design.
It was
like,
made.
It was.
Do you
Yeah,
still
it's all
have
custom.
it?
Custom.
Do you still have it?
I do not. I believe that it is in storage. Like at the studio still has it.
Interesting. Now that's an interesting factoid that I didn't really consider. After making a movie or a show, any like props or anything that are used on set or in that, like, do they literally just get slotted? Excuse me, sorry, I hit the microphone. Do they literally just get slotted into like storage after production is over? Interesting.
It depends on the show, or what production it is. If they think there's any possibility that something might continue from it, then they typically will keep some stuff around. Why throw everything away and rebuy it? So I think going back to Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson kept Bilbo's house, and he paid for it to be privately stored for the better part of a decade. Like, he bought like a climate-controlled storage unit in New Zealand and kept it there.
Nice.
And that was because he thought one day they would make the Hobbit movies, and he wanted it to be the same. So, it happens. I mean, I'm pretty sure they don't throw away much Star Wars stuff these days. And I know I didn't see much of the Walking Dead stuff disappear from like that production studio until that show was completely wrapped. Like, even if it was like stuff from early seasons, it absolutely got stored away because then they might need to do a flashback or something like that.
What was it like walking on The Walking Dead? What was it like working on The Walking Dead? Was that like one of your first major introductions to the film and show industry, or was that like later on in your career?
It was a pretty early. I mean, it was it's one of the most it's the most recognizable thing I've done, even though like I was a tiny character.
Are you credited?
So it was. No, I am not. Even though I was in the script as a character.
Interesting.
But that has to do with film industry rules. You know what I mean? So like, if you are, so my character was in the script, as, quote, the scavenger with the red umbrella. I was in 3 scenes in the script, but I worked for 2 seasons because, according to Greg Nicotero, I was the 4th in command for the trash people. But the problem is, the trash people have a leader who talks for them. They're like a hive mind. So Jadis is our leader who talks for us, and there's a couple other people that occasionally speak up and say maybe a word, and they're the ranking officers above me, and then there's me 4th. And so even though I worked for 2 seasons on it, I was a featured background artist, as we say in the business. But what was interesting about how that whole thing came about, I was on Halt and Catch Fire on AMC before that. And I was a featured background artist as well, named character, but I had to go audition for the potential of one day you will probably speak on camera, and we just don't know where. And it was like, okay. And then I don't want to badmouth Halt and Catch Fire because I have such a positive experience there, but they did have me speak one day, and they redubbed me, so they didn't have to pay me the higher rate. So that was a little sad, but anyway, I did get to move on to Walking Dead afterwards. They did. It was the same casting director, and they called me afterwards after I worked on Halt and Catch Fire for 8 episodes and said, "Would you like to work on The Walking Dead?" And I was like, "Can you tell me what I would be doing?" And they said, "No, I cannot." But I said, "Can you tell me, are you trying to have me just be a zombie?" And they're like, "No, you will not be a zombie. It will be something that you will want to do." And I was like, "All right, I'll take your word for it." And it was a pretty good little role. And even though it was very small, it was pretty iconic for a lot of people, especially in the Walking Dead fandom. Even though some people vehemently hated me because it just so happened that I was on the episode that the episode that everybody remembers me from with the umbrella is the episode that the trash people turn on the good guys, and I just so happened to be one of the people turning on them. And so I got a lot of hate, that messages literally directed at me, not at the character. But
okay, that's a way to go
people
about
take
things.
Stuff pretty seriously. Yeah, there was one of my favorites was here are 4 people that need to die right now, and it was 3 Walking Dead characters, and then it was and that guy who plays the guy with the umbrella, and it was oh, wow. So 3 fictional characters and a human being. Wonderful.
That is awesome. Do you feel like you learned, I mean, you probably learned something, but what do you feel like your takeaway from The Walking Dead was?
Oh man, I mean, that was a such a tight-knit family set. Everybody there had such a positive outlook, and they all had been so many of them had been working together for so many years. And then you constantly have new people coming in. It's the nature of the industry. But that, it wasn't a clique. They still treated everybody like they were coming into the Walking Dead family. You know what I mean? And it didn't matter if you were a nobody, they would still treat you like a human being.
I like that.
Yeah, so that was it was really, really, really great to see. And there's a lot of sets that still operate that way, but I don't think I'd been on I hadn't been on a set that was like that was that big. I was doing Walking Dead during the day, and then working on Spider-Man Homecoming at night. and the atmosphere on Walking Dead versus like the Marvel atmosphere was very, very different. Like, both of them very big budget. The Walking Dead was more difficult. It was hot. The whole 2 seasons I was on the show were in the winter, and like, you're filming in the summertime. I was wearing 3 layers of clothes, and it was brutal, but like, it was more enjoyable than working on the Marvel show, even though the Marvel show was on a sound stage and like air conditioned, and like the snacks were wonderful and the catering was perfect, and like, I enjoyed being on Walking Dead more because there was more of a camaraderie. Like, you know, like, Andrew Lincoln is sweating just as much as I am. You know, he's out there suffering just as much. Everybody is out there being like, oh, this sucks.
This is the hottest day of the year. We're all dying.
Yeah.
Well, so you've worked on an actual Marvel set, kind of, sort of, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I was one of the henchmen for the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming. And then, of course, as you do in things, I was cut. But you can kind of see me in like one shot. But yeah, no, I got the pay stubs to prove it. But it was an interesting experience because, like, boy, you realize, like, I mean, you hear the stories about like being on a Marvel movie that like they film so much stuff that you'll never see. You know, like, there's rewrites and this change and that change. Being there, you absolutely see it. Like, there were conversations about like scenes and like plot points that would have changed so much had they made it into the movie, but like, nope, they apparently rewrote it at some point, and that was really, really interesting to see.
From my limited like scope over here, just as someone who's watched the movies and has listened to the industry a little bit here and there, I feel like that is a disservice to the Marvel franchise. I feel like doing that, all those cuts, all those rewrites, like, what are they aiming for? Absolute peak perfection? Because in my personal opinion, they haven't found it.
Yeah. Oh man, like, I feel like I only remember, I think one shot, like, I really remember actually filming made it in. Like, everything else was completely cut, and it was just stuff that they wrote out, like whole plot points, whole sections of the movie. So yeah, I think you're right. Now, don't get me wrong.
The movies are still entertaining.
They're entertaining, and maybe what they rewrote should have been cut. I don't think I've said it on a podcast or anything like that, but talking with friends that are fans of the franchise, like, I've brought up some of the things that they filmed and were intending to do, and they're like, why would they do that? Why would they do that? So maybe they knew better. Maybe it was just like, oh, there's like a visceral negative reaction in these screenings to these choices. Maybe we're cutting it. Maybe that's what happened.
Do the writers read the source material?
Oh, I couldn't answer that.
Do you think that they do?
I would hope so. Well, some of the stuff that was filmed, in my mind, would say no. But yeah, there were some. I'll tell you, not publicly, one of the things that they filmed.
That's fair.
And it was real dumb.
We'll go off the record and spill some industry secrets. But let's see.
One day, whenever you leak that information and people go back to this episode, they'll be like, "Oh, I know exactly where she got it. I know exactly."
Indeed.
Well, guess what? My NDA is expired.
It'll be a nice piece of lore, I think.
Yeah. There we go.
I feel like I have a bucket load of questions and ideas and concepts to like think about, but we are, if you could believe it, 2 hours and 30 minutes into this.
I believe it only because I know how much I like to talk.
Same.
Yeah. This is not the first time that I've been on somebody's show for 2.5 hours. I believe there's a show that I was on about a month ago, and they typically have about 35-minute long episodes, and our episode was 2 hours and 35-minute long.
Nice.
And yeah. So.
I love talking. As we stated earlier in the episode, we have the same kind of vibe when it comes to just talking up to random, like walking up to random strangers and just talking to them. It's so nice. Like, it gives you that feel-good feeling. And I know I've had, like, viewers, like my friends and stuff, comment about my episodes on this podcast, and they're like, you know, I feel good at the end of the day sometimes after listening to, like, you. And I'm like, yes. Well, I think the reason that is because human connection. It always comes back to that. It comes back to human connection and creativity.
Yep, you're right. I mean, that's like, I think that's exactly why this has been so much fun. Like we've got the same kind of vibe about how we see the world. So I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you connecting me with your community.
Thank you, and I appreciate that you have taken the step to join the community. I know I sent you the Discord invite link to the server. I'm sorry if it looks like a mess. I'm still working on tidying it up and making it look good. If you have any suggestions for channels that we can add, let me know. I do take suggestions because this is not just my community, it's our community. I don't want to be the sole proprietor of everything. It feels... I'm the sole proprietor of Mars Wilson. That is who I'm the sole proprietor of. Anything else, it is a community effort, a village.
Yes, you only own yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns for me?
I don't think so, Mars. I don't have any concerns except the kudzu that is absolutely taking over our planet, one farm at a time.
I made a note here. I'm gonna have to pick those up later. I made a note here about the cow kudzu because I think cow cud came from kudzu. I'm gonna have to research that.
I mean, it's checking out to me. I mean, I'm willing to accept that it's fact at this point with no research.
But that's, I'm still gonna research, but I'm willing to accept it as fact.
It's probably a good idea. It's a good idea. You should definitely let me know. But I'm willing and I'm ready to accept it as fact.
And hopefully we can do something about it. Maybe we'll get those goats. Maybe
we got to get those goats and those ponies.
The ponies for sure. I need my midnight to run through the fields of kudzu.
Well, thank you so much, Mars. Thank you so much for having me.
I think...
And thanks to all of the folks out there listening, and I hope you watch my movie.
So, before we do end this today, can I invite you again for another episode in the near future?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
All right, cool. That is the last question I truly have at the time, so I'm okay with this answer.
Yeah, we'll put it on the calendar. We'll figure it out.
Cool. Technically, I do have one final question. Is there anything new in the works project-wise for you? Are you doing anything right now that we can kind of hint at or guide toward?
I don't know what it is that I'm working on, if that makes sense. I know that's probably doesn't make sense to people that aren't like creative, but I'm working on a project. I'm writing something. I don't know what its final form will be.
Oh.
But that's about as cryptic of an answer as I can give you. Yeah.
There
will be cameras.
Oh.
There will be scripts. There will be things, but I don't know what it is.
So we're sticking.
There will be kudzu. But I don't.
There will be kudzu. Well, yeah, that should have been my last question. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for being on this episode and agreeing, and thank you for the connection. And I feel like I've learned things from you today, especially about the kudzu.
And as long as that's the biggest takeaway that you have, then I've done my job here. That, and also watching the marks,
I will try to get at least 3 more people to watch it. That is my goal. I think I've gotten 2 besides myself.
Thank you for your service.
And send me that link after this so we can for the Blu-ray.
The Blu-ray. Yeah.
I am going to have to get that myself.
Thanks everybody though.
Of course.
And thanks to everybody for going out and buying the Blu-ray that's in the link.
Thank you for streaming the marks, and thank you for tuning into this episode. It has been great. This has been episode 27 of the Digital Quill Podcast with your host Mars Wilson, and this is where you say
Jonathan Realz.
Yes. All right. I hope you all have a great day. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Oh, and most importantly, keep going, humans of Earth. I cannot forget to say that on guest episodes. I think I've been forgetting to say that. Keep going, humans of Earth. We freaking got this. I know we do. Bye.
You got it, humans.